Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's another edition of Ross Racing. I'm your host, Matt Errolson. Alongside with me for the ride, Russell Parker. Now, usually I would ask if you had a good week, but I also want to mention here, throughout this last week, we actually reached 400 likes on the RO Sports Show Facebook page. Of course, you've been there since the beginning, so happy to see that. Of course, we appreciate it. Like we said on all the other shows, everybody that has liked, shared, commented on any of our shows. So, yeah. Besides that, good week of racing, right?
Heck yeah. I mean, man, it has been phenomenal week down in Atlanta. Some of the best racing I've seen in a long time.
Absolutely. And with that being said, NASCAR drivers and fans finally got some full action of the brand new rules package at Atlanta Motor Speedway, which completely went over my head when you explained it to me last time. But that's why we got you here. The Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500 saw the debut of the tapered spacers. Now, Russell, we've seen this new rules package in an actual race now. So what are your thoughts while you're watching it?
Yeah, past couple of years, Atlanta has not had very great racing. It's kind of been just one driver, Kevin Harvick, who has just kind of dominated the entire race, and it just wasn't that exciting to watch. But this year, you've seen so much side-by-side action going on. I mean, cars were always hanging together. It wasn't like a plate race where you see them bunched up door to door, bumper to bumper the whole way. But they were close together. They were closely packed. And I thought it was a really good mixture of what you normally see versus what is new now. And I think we saw a lot of lead changes. There were even some drivers who you don't usually see up front racing to the front. Some drivers that you expect, they would fall back. Overall, it was just a really action-packed. I mean, it was a lot of interesting things going on at this race.
Well, one thing that we did see, at least as far as the Cup Series, was Brad Keselowski taking the checkered flag. And that was a milestone win for the Michigan native. He's now the most winningest driver at Team Penske, clocking in at 60 wins, and he did it all while being sick. So
yeah.
But Keselowski, though, certainly become a household name in NASCAR, right?
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, he's from, like I said, from Michigan. He grew up around the Penske name up there as well. And to get that 60th victory is really special. I did not realize that he has 60 wins with Penske already. That includes the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, and combine those together, that's 60 wins. And certainly for a short period of time, he's done a lot for that organization. And I think he's very loyal to the captain as well.
I know we're going to talk about it here in just a minute, but among the big three, how come Keselowski's not up there? How come it's not a big four? I mean, 60 wins is 60 wins.
Well, that's over an entire span, but we're talking about
but
big three was about 2018. That's where that name came from.
Yeah.
They were winningest drivers in 2018. But
right.
Keselowski did give him a run for their money for a little bit there, but he wasn't quite there last year. But I think this year he's definitely got some mojo. I think he's got his eyes set on that Cup championship this year. He might be a force to be reckoned with in the coming races.
Speaking of the big three, Kyle Busch also celebrated a milestone over the weekend at Atlanta. Instead of the Cup Series, happened in the Truck Series, something that you were expecting to happen. But Busch won the Truck race in his usual dominating fashion. Now holds the record himself for most wins in the Truck Series, 52, breaking NASCAR Hall of Famer Ron Hornaday Jr.'s record. So, while there's something to be noted, of course, is it really something that Kyle Busch and Rowdy Nation should be celebrating, given Busch is a Cup Series champion, been racing in the Cup Series full time?
I don't really think it's – I mean, congratulations to him. He's definitely done a lot for the Truck Series. I'll give him credit now. He has done he's got his own organization. Kyle Busch Motorsports has thrown out a bunch of great talent on the Truck Series level and brought them up through the Xfinity and the Cup Series now. But I think it's not really that special to be celebrating most all-time wins. I mean, he dominates week in, week out when he's in this race. I mean, you can look forward to the rest of the season that he has with the Truck Series. He's probably going to win those races as well. It's hard to count against him, and I think, if you're a Cup champion, you should not be racing in a lower series. I think by that time you have been proven that you should be racing with the best. And not digging anything at Xfinity and Truck Series drivers, but they're not the best in NASCAR. The guys at the Cup level are. And the race with the lesser than best, I think it's just it's not in good taste.
Yeah, I would imagine thinking NASCAR is probably the only sport where the top guys drop down and play in the quote-unquote minor leagues. Mm-hmm. Any other sport, it's only there because of an injury.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. But moving forward in the Xfinity Series, another big performer took the checkered flag. Christopher Bell, who got the all-new Toyota Supra, their first Xfinity Series victory in just their second race. Now, me personally, I'm not surprised to see Bell in victory lane. We've been talking about this guy for a year now. Let's talk about the dominance he had in this race. What's the sky's the limit, right?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't the only one though that gave a good run. He led, I think, all but 20 laps of that race. But I mean, looking at the guys who finished behind him, Cole Custer and Justin Allgaier, those guys are just as big as him. It's just that he gets more wins. But he wasn't the Cup champion, or excuse me, the Xfinity champion last year. So there are guys who can give him a run for his money. But Christopher Bell, I think, is going to continue to be the dominant guy in the Xfinity Series from here on out. I mean, he's got such a tremendous amount of talent. He was great in the Truck Series, stayed there for a little while, and he bumped up to Xfinity. And I'm not sure how much longer he's going to stay down there if he keeps on like this.
So that's the thing. I mean, yeah, he didn't win the Xfinity Series last year, but he still dominated up until that point. So. I expect big things from Christopher Bell. And again, we've been talking about this kid, really, closer to your age than my age, for quite some time. So Atlanta now in the rearview mirror. So now NASCAR is heading west for the next 3 weeks, with the first stop being in Las Vegas. So cue the slot machine. The 3 national series are in week 3, but for the K&N Pro Series West, they just got started with their season at the dirt track at Las Vegas. Now, the race got underway Thursday night. It ended with a last lap pass by 17-year-old Haley Deegan to grab the checkered flag. Now, she's known in the racing community as the Dirt Princess, which I love that name. She also grabbed her second victory in the K&N Pro Series. First female to win in NASCAR's regional series from last year. Accolades go on and on. But now she's had a ton of media attention since that first win at Meridian Speedway in Idaho. Russell, you think she's the next big star in NASCAR, or just a bunch of hype?
I think she's going to be the next. She's going to certainly be a force to be reckoned with in the coming years. I mean, she's only 17 years old and already got 2 wins underneath her belt in the regional series, and of course, being the first female driver. But she has this attitude that coming into this race, she finished second in this race last year, and she said going into this race that she was not going to sell for second. She was going to go for first, and sure enough, the closing lap there. She put door to door with the other guy, and in the first turns 1 and 2, coming into 3 and 4, the guy came back up and bumped her in the rear, and she held on to it. She didn't lose or anything. She held on to it. She did what she said she was going to do and got the checker flag. And this is just the first race of the season. Who knows how many more she's going to win?
Now, look, you just mentioned she's only 17. I'm going to put you on the hot seat here for a second. Not to say that women can't compete at the highest level of NASCAR. But didn't we already hear about the next big thing when Danica Patrick was coming up? She was, I mean, let's be honest, she was a little bit of a disappointment, wasn't she?
Danica Patrick didn't really start with NASCAR, though. She came from IndyCar, and I think there's a big difference in that. She did run well when she was in IndyCar, but I think Deegan has the dirt racing background. When I say dirt racing for her, I'm not talking about dirt track racing. I'm talking about off-road dirt racing. And I think that actually prepares a driver a lot better than just being from IndyCar, which is a completely different motorsport. So I think she's got the determination. She knows how to handle that roughness. I think nature's probably the biggest force you can be reckoned with when you're driving. So I think she can handle any hard racing on the track. The attitude, I think she's got a good attitude, but she's humble about it at the same time. And I think she's going to go very far in NASCAR. And next year she'll be eligible to start racing in the Truck Series because if you can't be 17 and drive on the super speedways. That's the only thing that's probably holding her back right now.
Wow. She's too young to actually bump up.
Yeah. And so I think that next year maybe Kyle Busch Motorsports will pick her up for the Truck Series and see what she can do there.
It would not surprise me. I mean, obviously, because she is a female and there's such a small number of them in the sport, anytime one of them does well, obviously it gets a lot of media attention. So, all right. Let's get down to the big race. Of course, Pennzoil 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway is going to be a 400-mile, 272-lap race. Starts on Sunday at 3:30 p.m. on Fox and PRN. Russell, what do you expect to see out of this race now that we have an understanding of this new rules package, or at least you do?
So, well, even I still have some misunderstandings because this race is actually going to be what they've been calling the true test of the rules package. Because last week they used a brake duct, and this one will be an air duct. So this is kind of the one that everybody's going to be using this from here on out for most of the races. So I still expect some similar racing to Atlanta where it's side-by-side, drivers coming and going to the front. I think there's going to be a plethora of drivers who you don't usually see up front. They're going to be the guys who are going to surprise everyone. And, if you're racing in your fantasy league like me, you have no idea who to pick because these races are so unpredictable right now. But I think you're going to see some drivers already familiar with these tracks like Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski. I'm probably just name off the big four again, but I think even Logano could have an opportunity here. He had a chance to win the race last week, had a issue with his tire. He probably could have been in the running for that race win, so he's probably another driver who's got it figured out for the most part now.
All right. I wonder if we're going to see the dominance from a small group of drivers like we did last year as we move further throughout the season.
Possible.
So, yeah, of course it is. All right. So before I get your pick for the win in Vegas, let's play the fun game. Checkers or wreckers? Number one, let's start here. The AllStar race, of course, ran in Charlotte, should move around to different tracks every year.
I am going to say wreckers on this one because I think, not just because it's closer to me to go and see that race every year, but I think having it here and the AllStar race here in pretty much the home of all the NASCAR teams. I mean, now I think every team is now located in the Charlotte area. So having it in their backyard, it's 2 weeks that they've got at Charlotte back home with their families and kind of taking it a little more relaxed instead of having to rush through every single week. You can go home, eat some dinner with your family, and just I think overall it helps the drivers out. I think they enjoy having Charlotte 2 weeks in a row. So I'm going to say wreckers. Keep it in Charlotte.
With that being said, I was looking at the back of Kyle Larson's bio here. It says he's from Elk Grove, California. He now resides in Huntersville, North Carolina.
Yeah, many of them moved
That's just another example of what you were just saying. However, just to rebuttal here, just to play devil's advocate, every other sport, and I know NASCAR doesn't need to copy it, but every other sport's AllStar game moves from city to city. Is this something that's actually been talked about in the NASCAR community?
There has been some talk about it because Charlotte hasn't been all that exciting, especially with the All-Star race. But that's kind of where this new rules package even came from originally, was to try and make the All-Star race more interesting to watch, and it certainly was last year. So if they figured out how to make it more fun to watch, I think they've got it settled.
I always feel like I compare, when we're talking here, baseball to whatever it is that we're speaking on. But like in baseball, when they change stadiums for the All-Star game, it's because each stadium's different. It's got different dimensions. Aren't racetracks similar in that no two are the same? I mean, isn't that one of the points of perhaps moving the All-Star around?
And personally, I wouldn't. I mean, if I had control over it, and I think it was okay, I think keep it maybe in the southeast region. So Charlotte, Bristol, Martinsville, Darlington, those tracks, I think right in that little belt of tracks, I think maybe you can rotate it out there because it's closer to home. I think it's a good idea to keep the drivers close to home for All-Star weekend.
Perhaps I feel like if NASCAR was actually going to move the All-Star race, they probably should have done it like 10 years ago as opposed to now. Because, I mean, I could be completely wrong, but I feel like NASCAR moved west, moved north, went to some bigger cities. It didn't go as well as they thought it would have. Perhaps maybe now we'll start seeing it come back towards the south. In my opinion, I just think maybe if they're going to do it, they should have already done it. If not, keep it in Charlotte because it's close.
There's been talks that it can move to Las Vegas, and that very well could happen because there's the same ownership of the tracks.
Absolutely. Plus, you get all the festivities of being in Vegas.
And Vegas loves NASCAR.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I could see it going from just Vegas to Charlotte, just year after year. I wouldn't have any problem with that. So, all right, let's move on and check as a records. Number 2, a driver who is a lap down, which would be me if I was driving, or about to go a lap down, should move over to allow the leaders to race. Now, this question is alluding to the situation between Martin Truex Jr. and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. towards the end of that Atlanta race. Checkers or records?
I am going to say, as a driver moves down, no, he should not move down. I don't like giving up position no matter where you are on the track. You should not give it to somebody. Make them earn that spot.
Right.
I mean, Truex is whining about Stenhouse being in his way. There's 3 other lanes he could have took to go around. If it was going too slow, he could have went around them. I mean, it's like driving on the highway.
I started laughing to myself because let me ask you this. What would it take to get horns installed in NASCAR? Just get out of the way.
That
You're in the fast lane, that kind of thing.
Yeah. and Stenhouse defending himself, I mean, he pretty much said, he was racing for position himself, and he might be a lap down, but he's also racing for getting back on the lead lap because if caution came out, he was in that spot to be what they call the lucky dog, get his lap back and be safe to go on throughout the race. But, I don't think nobody should be given anything in this sport, especially. Yeah. Fight for earn what you got to get.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Number 3, we were talking about IndyCar a few minutes ago. NASCAR and IndyCar should share a race weekend together at Pocono.
I am going to say checkers on this. It's an idea I actually came up with last year. When they're at Pocono, both series go there often, and I would like to see those two kind of like collaborate on one race weekend.
Why do they never overlap?
In a way, they're kind of competing against each other.
Okay, true.
But
That's
I
true.
think having them together will be beneficial to both because you can introduce IndyCar to NASCAR fans and vice versa. That's kind of how the broadcasters have done it over the years between the Coca-Cola 600 and the Indy 500. They race on the same day. They go from one in the morning to one night. So it's kind of a thing there, and I think it's a benefit of both sports for that. So I think having one at Pocono, which will make Pocono more interesting come race weekend, because Pocono has not been that exciting of a race lately, but I think if you go to it, I think it'll be a lot more interesting to have both series there.
All right.
Think of the parties.
Well, of course. I mean, hello.
Party in the Poconos.
Yeah, up to the Poconos. All right, records or checkers. Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, a.k.a. the Big Three. We know about that. We've been talking about them. Will not be as dominant in 2019 as they were last year.
I'm going to say checkers on this one.
Really?
Not to say all three of them won't be dominant. I think maybe it might be... I don't know. I think Kevin Harvick may not be as dominant as he has been lately. He didn't fare too well in Daytona or Atlanta, which Atlanta's been the track he's dominated at the most. He might be the one who takes a little bit longer to figure it out between the three on how this full package works. Truex definitely showed a great display of driving in Atlanta. He had finished second. Maybe if he had one more lap, he could have won it. And Kyle Busch, I don't know about Kyle Busch. He's kind of a toss-up for me. I think maybe it might take him a while to figure it out as well.
All right. And finally, number 5, IndyCar racing should come to Rockingham Speedway. This one's a little out of the box, but records or checkers.
I am going to say checkers on this one because going back to what I said, I think fans getting introduced to a different sport, I think will pique an interest in IndyCar, and I have no problem with IndyCar either. They actually race up in Iowa, which was a track that's similar to Rockingham, it's a 1 mile track. Nobody really thinks that IndyCar is racing on ovals, but they do it quite often.
Do they?
They do. Iowa, of course, Indianapolis. There's a few more I can't think off the top of my head. But they do travel around a lot, and I think coming to Rockingham will be pretty cool.
I think a lot of people that they automatically think Formula One and weaving in and out and having those sharp turns. I was the same way, even though I just realized, Indianapolis is an oval, and they definitely race there.
Yeah.
So before we finish up here, one more thing to talk about in IndyCar. You and I went to the Charlotte Roval. Of course, was on the track, then went to the race later on. Would that be a place perhaps IndyCar would do well with that half oval, half race course?
I think
road
so.
Course,
I think they could. I think they actually do have a race where it is part oval, part road course themselves. Yeah, they have a roval. I don't think it's real called roval, but they have a similar configuration on our track. I think it will be, yeah.
All right, there you go. So we're at the end of the road, literally and figuratively. So Russell, who are you taking to win in Vegas?
Well, I have this hat sitting up here, but
how about that?
I'm not picking Logano. I am going to go with Keselowski back-to-back as teammate. I think Brad's got this figured out. I think being sick and going into a race, I mean, he was so sick he couldn't do his PR stuff or anything like that. He didn't want nobody to bother him that weekend. And I think that he's got, like I said earlier, he's got this mojo that it's just clicked on him right now, and he's just going for it. And I think he's going to have a lot of momentum coming into this race here. He's won at Las Vegas before. He knows how to get it done. I think moving forward, he's just going to continue to be a force to be reckoned with.
All right. Didn't he win in Vegas last year?
Not last year, that was Truex, but he did win the year before.
Okay. I knew that.
He finished second.
Wink, wink, I knew that.
He finished second. That's close.
That's what it was. I got my NASCAR history mixed up there. No, just kidding. You're obviously the encyclopedia when it comes to NASCAR around here. And as we mentioned, that is the end of the road for another edition of Ross Racing. Of course, we appreciate everybody tuning in. We also appreciate, again, everybody for liking our page that we hit 400. We want to hit another 400. So if you haven't, tell your friends, share it, comment, like, all that good stuff across all of our social media platforms.
And I want to do a quick shout out. I know we didn't get to it in the show, but Rockingham Dragway, we went out there yesterday for an interview with Steve Earwood, the president, and you can see that interview on Live at 5's Friday edition.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely go check that out. We really appreciate him for letting us come out there as well. So that's Russell Parker. I'm Matt Harrelson. We'll see you right back here on the track for another edition of Ross Racing.